Welcome to the Lightforge. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps, and welcome to the Lightforge. Although it does seem a little bit premature because as of tomorrow, the 24th, we are getting news about the expansion. So we are doing this the exact day before expansion news comes out. And by news, I really mean card reveals, right? Which is what we care about.
Yeah.
So we should be seeing quite a few new cards starting tomorrow. And I'm sure they'll do the trickle effect where they will release a couple of new cards every single day and then do the big dump some point, right before the expansion comes out.
And they put it on pause. If you guys remember, they kind of revealed it a couple days after the 4th of July what the next expansion is, and then they're like, we're gonna go away from a while and come back. So they're coming back. We're excited. We don't know anything about it. And the next Lightforge, we're gonna start reviewing some of those cards. I don't even know if we're gonna review all the cards as they come out because we do this like big review at the end. It's getting so close, but we'll have like theories and stuff to talk about in the next Lightforge. For this one, we're going to focus on what's happening right now and for the next 3 weeks, which is the Frost Festival.
Yeah.
What is the Frost Festival, Merps?
The Frost Festival is an event that Blizzard has created following the Fire Festival. As you guys know, if you were playing during the Fire Festival, all quests gave you double gold, right? To help you prepare for the expansion. As for the Frost Festival, what the Frost Festival offers is 1 free arena ticket every single week. It also gives you a quest to do 3 arena games. And when you play 3 arena games, you get a free pack from the new expansion.
That you can't open yet.
Can't open yet, but it's still
it's
free.
Great. And you want the packs from the next expansion, not this one.
Right. And the big news for all you arena players is that every run from this point onwards it starts at 1-0, so none of you guys can go 0-3 now, okay?
And none of you guys can go 12 wins either. You're only going to get 11 and then they stop you because you will know, right? Like your record won't show it, but you will know that you did not get 12 wins and you only got 11 before Blizzard stopped you.
Right. So this is another example of Blizzard putting the focus on arena before an expansion. The last time we saw this was actually in GVG.
Yep. Oh, that was a glorious time. Me and Merps were at a bachelor party in Montreal. And
I wasn't there. You were there.
Wait, were you not there? Oh, you weren't there.
No,
I had to freaking Skype you. I was even lamer.
Dang.
Okay,
yeah.
So I thought Merps was lame because he wasn't going to go to the bachelor party with us and one of our good friends from back in high school to Montreal for a bachelor party. And then we got there, and all of a sudden, we had to do a tier list, and the GVG cards were already in the arena, so we couldn't wait like we wanted to. So after dinner, and when everybody was doing activities, I stayed back at the hotel and had a nice Google Hangouts with Merps for 3 hours, talking through the cards, because they did the data dump and everything, and we just were not prepared. So that was fun.
We were not prepared. That was correct.
We were not prepared.
So yeah, this is the second time that Blizzard has put the focus on the arena right before an expansion, and it's very appreciated. First of all, giving out anything free is nice. It makes people happy, and it promotes hype, right? So this is great because it gives people free runs, and it also helps them become infinite, right? Or just get better rewards because you're giving everyone a free win. So that's basically the Frost Festival. Very arena focused, lots of free stuff, and lots of new, fresh blood coming into the arena, which is great for everyone involved. The Sharks,
except for the new blood.
And no, it's free for them. It's free for them. It doesn't matter.
It's true.
Get a free pack out of it. Yeah, it's all good.
But yeah, so this is definitely like good news, and we knew about it before, but not at the exact date. And now that it's come out, it's going to last for 3 weeks, which means the actual expansion is going to be released almost certainly on the 9th or the 10th. Almost certainly at the end of the Frost Festival, because they wouldn't put the Frost Festival in like before the actual release of the game, because when the game releases, they don't need a promotion, right? Like it's an expansion, it's its own promotion,
right? And this definitely makes sense. This is the timeline that we thought, or it was around.
Everyone made predictions like that. Toast came out and
right.
quote unquote leaked the expansion date as the 10th, but I think everyone knows it's just a very educated guess. But yeah. So right now everyone's pinning the new expansion date on the 10th.
So it makes a lot of sense. And what that means is the Frost Festival awkwardly spans 2 months, right? So at the end of this month and the beginning of next month, we are going to have this period where new players are going to be playing the arena because of the start at 1-0 and more importantly, the free tickets, right? And this obviously has an impact for you if you are going for the leaderboards, which a lot of people are, right? So what does this mean exactly for the leaderboards? We're not 100% sure. We're not 100% sure.
We asked Blizzard, we did not get an answer, and nobody knows.
Nobody really knows, and it's been brought up in tweets. It's been brought up in forums as well. So there are a few possible scenarios that can occur because of this. The problem stems from all runs starting at 1-0, right? The default, and I think what is most likely going to happen, is that whatever you get is whatever you get. So if you get
free
8 wins, yeah,
like basically your win rate goes up by like about 1.
By about 1. That's the easiest way for them to do it, right? But we can see the problem it presents because it
makes everything worthless before then.
Right.
And it makes it worthless. It's more of a problem with the next one than this one, right? Because the next month has like literally 1 week of this festival, and then the rest of the month is pointless for the leaderboard.
Right, exactly. So it really messes with the leaderboards if it's like this. But then again, if you look at sort of the flip side, like, so what can they do about it? Would they subtract 1 from these new runs?
That would actually be unfair the other way because you can't get 12. Or maybe you subtract 1 for all things that are not 12 and you just count 12s as 12s. That's complicated, and we don't know if Blizzard can even do it with their system.
I don't think they would do that, right?
Yeah.
Also, they can't just even track by date, because when I went into the arena, I had a run from the previous night that I clicked to buy into the arena, but I didn't even choose my class yet. And I just selected after the event started. Right. Like I started my draft, and that started off at 0-0.
Oh, so you have to purchase the actual run in the time period of the expansion.
Right.
So that's when they have to track it. And we all know Blizzard claims at least that they track whenever the run ends, not when the run ends.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very...
So basically Blizzard's boxed themselves into like a corner with this one when it comes to the leaderboard, and they're just going to take whatever it is. And so if you haven't gone for the leaderboard yet this month and you want to, now's actually a great time. You're like not actually behind at all. You're like 3 days behind other people.
You have a week to squeeze in 30 runs. Good luck. Not impossible if you clear your schedule and you do what, like 4 runs a day? Yeah, 4 runs a day. It's not impossible. 4 runs a day. That's like set aside a good 8 hours. But yeah, we can definitely see the problems that we have. Like the leaderboards this month are definitely going to be those skew a little high, right?
Whack. The word you're looking for is whack.
And it really is disappointing for some people that sort of try-harded for the leaderboard at the start of the month, right? Because your old scores are going at a 1-game disadvantage, which is huge, which means you can't use those. Let's be honest. For example, I know Hafu has been really grinding the leaderboards this month, and she got 30 runs in basically before the event started, and she was at 8.2 over 30, which is very good, right? That's a very good score. That would place her very competitive for number 1 based on previous months. But after this event, that score would be maybe top 50, right? Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, everyone gets a free win, right? Just like drop it by 1 from where it should be. It's still good, but it's not like going to carry her to like a top 3 finish anymore.
Yeah. So look, is the event overall good for Hearthstone?
Of course. This leaderboard thing, like I love how you started with like a lot, many of the listeners are going for the leaderboard. I'm like, no, not many listeners are going for the leaderboard. Like,
Well, no,
very few listeners are going for the leaderboard. Even our listeners, very few are going for the leaderboard, much less like the wider world. This affects like a very tiny percentage of people.
Right.
We talk about it because we're very like, competitive / improvement, whatever, focus on the arena, and the leaderboard's a good way to track that for anybody who is like soft infinite going into hard infinite. Like that's where the cutoff kind of is right now. So it's a very good thing to do if you like want to track your progress, and Blizzard puts your name on there, and it's nice. But like it really doesn't affect many people.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But once again, this just goes to this communication issue that we've talked about for a long time, right? Mm-hmm. Blizzard knows that there is a segment of the population, and a lot of them happen to be streamers, right? Happen to be people that the general community like to watch and like to follow. And nothing about the Frost Festival was communicated, and when questions were asked, no answers were given. Right now we're just assuming that the score you get is the score that they will take, but there has been no confirmation for that. So once again, this is one of those things where I love the fact that Blizzard is doing stuff for the arena and tying the arena in, right? Like getting everyone involved in the arena. But communication, once again, is so important, and it just feels like another move that kind of alienates your heart, like your very, very, very hardcore.
I wouldn't even care, but like bring it to where like what people actually care about, right? Which is how Blizzard functions. It's not about like what the hardcore people are doing or not. It's how Blizzard is doing things. Blizzard is like a dysfunctional goat where the signals go from the brain to the hoof, and then the butt swings to the right and the tail flops down. So that's what's happening in the arena right now. Where
why does it have to be a goat?
I don't know. I like goats. This is what's happening in the arena right now, where what Blizzard is doing on one end is creating leaderboard, telling people stuff, trying to balance the arena and whatever. And what they're doing on the other end is this other community group. I'm assuming this is not something like, I'm sure, Ixar and like Mike and whoever, like they, Mike Donay, I was corrected on his pronunciation, so I can actually use it this week. I'm sure they approved it, but like this was not their project. They didn't this was not their department, right? They didn't own this. And so in the corporate culture of Blizzard and whatever, because we joke Blizzard's a small indie company, but really they're a huge freaking conglomerate where communication is an issue. And we all know Team 5 grew by just 10 times its original staff in the first 2 years of Hearthstone's existence since the release, because they didn't realize the game was going to get so popular. So they're clearly still having these kinds of communication issues where one part of Blizzard is just not really fully talking to the other side, or they're not viewing what the other person does at the same importance that they should. Like if I was managing a company, I would see this as a huge issue. And if you're just a player in the game, you may wonder, what do I care about it? Well, it's how the game gets made. It's how decisions in the game gets made. It's how the game gets developed. So it really affects literally everyone when it comes to if you're wondering about what Blizzard's doing, right? It reflects very poorly on Blizzard. And again, this is the same thing as with the microtransactions, right? They're like, hey, we're going to tell you how the game functions, and then they missed 2 rules. They missed a faceless summoner.
Micro changes, not microtransactions.
Sorry,
what
micro adjustments. I meant, my bad. Micro adjustments.
Okay, yeah, guys. There's no microtransactions yet. That word triggers a lot of people. Okay, you cannot just throw that word around.
Okay. Micro adjustments. But what was I saying? You just interrupted my train of thought.
But just like with the micro adjustment thing, ... Really?
I don't know. I don't know what's going on anymore.
You were about to make an analogy.
I was about to make an analogy to something. And micro adjustments. Right, okay. So when they were communicating the micro adjustments to us in the patch notes, what they did is they listed all the rules in the arena along with that, so that we all have all the rules in arena in one place, and they missed Faceless Summoner. That's where I left off on, by the way, before I was interrupted by Merps. So they cut off on Faceless Summoner, which was a card that is banned in the arena, entirely banned, and it wasn't on the ban list in the rules. So the rules were wrong, compared to what's actually happening. And they also missed the 50% neutral classic card rate penalty, which is also very important and was also not there. So some people thought the rules were like this. Some people thought they weren't. It was done differently. When the micro adjustments came out, if you heard us in the last Lightforge, they actually went up to about 20%. when it was communicated that it was only going to go up to 5%. So I don't know if it should only be at 5% and the people actually doing the algorithm made it 20%, or if it always was okay to be 20% and they just told us 5%, like they were off about the other rules. And then Ixar actually went on to Reddit to say that no, it's not really 20%. It only went up to 10%. And I was like, okay, great, I guess. So you're still like 2 times off what you told us. That's not a good thing. And then he corrected that by saying, oh no, it's actually only 5%. Because I was adding in some other things, and then someone followed up. It's like, what other things? There's no other things that happened since you told us 10%. Because he said 10% was a change from 8.2 to 8.4. And 8.2 is when the weapons change and the Ungoro changes got scaled back. So like nothing happened then except for Vicious Fledgling. And we have numbers from HS Replay that tell us it's like almost 20% or a little over 20% on some cards, even if, you know, our data is not as big as Blizzard's data, obviously. So anyway, it's just a lot of like, what are you doing, Blizzard? Like, the people who are programming are not with the people who are supposed to be making strategy decisions about like the competitiveness of the game, which is not connected to people who are doing these promotional events. Like, just get it together, right? Like, make some rules, tell us the rules. It's really not that hard. It shouldn't be that hard.
Right. Or this is your personal philosophy, and I totally agree. If it really is that hard, then those shouldn't be your rules. Right. If it really is so hard that they either cannot explain it, or they're just like, by cannot explain it, I mean like they don't know how to explain it, or they cannot explain it because
they don't know. Like, I really don't think the Blizzard like balancing team or whatever, the arena balancing team, really know what's going on with like the actual algorithm. And I also don't think they know like the details, at least, about like what's actually going on with the Frost Festival, or like when it's going to happen, or what the impact is. I think they're just all operating parallel. They're like, Frost Festival, good idea. You know, oh, micro adjustments, good idea. Class balance, very good. You know, we want more weapons in the arena. Yeah, let's do that. And they're just separate people, and they're all implementing their stuff, and it's just not, there probably should be. Like, I'm sure that in name, there's like a central person or group or whatever that's supposed to know everything and be able to communicate everything, but there isn't. Or some process in the middle is getting done. Anyway, this is a huge rant that goes like that went you know, and we're gonna connect this. We're gonna connect this between the Frost Festival and the micro adjustments and the direction that that Blizzard's trying to take the arena. All right, because Blizzard is trying to take the arena in some kind of direction. They've been doing stuff with it ever since Karazhan, right? Like before Karazhan, all they did is introduce new cards into the arena. That's all they did. Right? They started, before they did nothing, and then they started considering rarity as a way to like do class balance in the arena. But starting from Karazhan, they actually went in and they actually started tweaking like individual cards. They started tweaking like, you know, things with like offering rates. They were like, Purify? No, okay, Purify's not going to be in the arena. Faceless Summoner, too oppressive. We're not going to put that in the arena. Oh, the Karazhan offering bonus was too high. We're going to totally get rid of it here. They started like actually doing some stuff concerning arena balance that was arena only. And more recently, obviously, with the 7.1 changes, that was like the first big overhaul about the direction that Blizzard wants arena to go into. So 7.1 was in February, I want to say. No, it was like March. 7.1 opened in March. It has now been a good 4 months since 7.1 was released. So let's look at what's happened since 7.1 and what direction Blizzard wanted Arena to go, what the changes that happened after that have brought Arena to go, and where, one, not judging how good it is, where we think it's going to go, and then two, judging whether that's good or bad, or if they should go in, like, you know, which direction it should go in.
Right.
So let's start with one. Oh, sorry.
Sure.
Do you want to add a piece to that? Do you want to add
Yeah, and I just think it is important because, you know, we have been we've been very critical, right? We have been very critical, but I think it's important to separate that out and just sort of really focus on, like, we have seen a ton of changes, and I think it is important to, like, really try to guess where it's going, because things seem to be not exactly speeding up, but they are definitely not slowing down in terms of the arena. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Anyways, I just wanted to make that point. You can do your thing, and I can ignore you like I always do. Go on.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yes.
Co-hosts.
We've been doing this for a long time, man. All right. Ugh.
Okay, so so the direction of the arena that Blizzard's taking it. So first, I think 7.1 changes have come down for enough time that it's pretty obvious what the effects are. We predicted the effects. We confirmed it when Ungoro came out. Ungoro actually made it worse. But the big picture effect is that you are now able to be more of an active participant on a turn-to-turn basis, right? Like, that's why spells were increased. It's not like the most accurate way to increase people's initiative or like to make the classes do what they should be doing. It hurts certain classes, obviously, like minions-based classes, and it used to hurt weapons-based classes before they made weapons the same as spells. So it was pretty obvious where it was going, and it went there, and that's a direction, right? Like, that's Blizzard putting a thumb on the scale and saying, we want this game to be more spell-based, and so we're raising it by 100 or to 175% of what minions are, and that'll be how Arena is, and everybody's kind of adjusted to it. So as a side effect of that change and bigger overall changes to it, and the Ungoro like class the expansion coming in and being so overpowered compared to what has existed before Ungoro, the general effect, and I think everybody kind of agrees it to a certain extent, but they're all on the agreeing side, not on the disagreeing side with this statement, which is that what you are offered in a draft matters now more than it ever has.
Yeah.
And a different way to translate and a different way to translate that is skill matters less in the arena than it ever has.
Now, okay, but before you go on, I think it's important. Skill still matters a ton.
Yes.
Skill still matters a ton. This is just relative here. It's just relative to the amount of skill that you needed to have. Does skill still matter? Yes. This is why you have the the Hafus, the Shadies, the Ishers, and they're not going 3 wins all the time, right? Or now I guess it's like 4 wins. They're still averaging their 7.5s, 8s, on a good stretch 9s, right?
Mm-hmm.
But ADWCTA's point is that skill matters less.
It used to be the case. Okay, it used to be the case that we could all kind of get together, any good like arena player, and be like, all right, we're gonna draft the deck. And you're gonna see a deck, and it like kind of curves out, and then it like is otherwise really bad, and you're like, this is like one of the worst decks I've seen. And then the streamer typically goes 7 or 8 wins. Why? Because that's what you can do with a crappy deck. Like, even crappy decks can do well. Why? Because skill mattered more. Because you can do more stuff with it. Because you have to do these anticipatory things when you play a minion-based game that that you don't have to when you can do a spell-based game. And when all the cards are more in the same range of goodness, like when the variance is less high, when there's less flipping the boardness happening by one card, you are less likely to get blown out because of that one card. And sure, you win as many because of that as you lose, but that takes skill out, right? Like, skill is in the middle ranges. If everybody has a card that says I win the game, then everybody has a 50% win rate.
Sure.
And it goes back from there, right? And that's a really powerful card. So if everybody has the same level of really powerful cards, that's not a good thing. That's a bad thing when it comes to skill mattering, at least. So if you come to the perspective that you want the game to make skill be a bigger determinant of win rate than luck and what you're offered in the draft, this has been a very bad development for the arena. Possibly good in other ways, but at least from that perspective, it is definitely like in a negative direction. And with that, let's look at the follow-on effects of what happens there, right? So first, what happens is your draft matters a lot. Your otherwise skill matters less, right? So that happens as step 1. Step 2 is, as you get more and more powerful cards. There was what do you call it? Like Ungoro cards are better than regular cards, right? There was a power creep happening.
Okay, you couldn't remember.
I couldn't remember power creep. I'm really bad at remembering like names of this stuff.
All right. Okay.
So if you have primordial drakes now in the meta, if you have meteors now in the meta in like massive quantities that you like never had anything like remotely close to these kinds of power levels in the arena before, at least not at this quantity, right? Like, you had like 1 or 2 stray cards that were that powerful, like a fiery war axe or whatever, and they were never in the classes that mattered enough. Like, Flamestrike is not that powerful, right? Like, Meteor puts Flamestrike to shame. But Meteor is offered in the arena at 100% its rate, and Flamestrike is offered at half, because reasons. Anyway, my point is, when you put the power creep with the fact that your offerings matter more than your skill to begin with, you create a big power divergence with decks. And when the big power divergence happens, if you have a good deck, it's okay. It's even better for you, actually, because you're killing much weaker decks, right? There's much fewer of better players with a bottom 40 percentile deck that can beat your top 25 percentile deck. That just happens much rarer because the difference between bottom 40 percentile and top 25 percentile is actually way larger now than it used to be. So it's less likely for them to catch up. So what do you do if your draft is not going to be one of the best, right? On average, you will get a 50 percentile deck, right? You'll get some good decks, some bad decks. That means like half the time you're playing with a below average deck in terms of card offering qualities. So your single cards are not good. What do you have to do then? Well, the more swings there are in this game, as for example caused by a Primordial Drake or a Meteor, the only way to counter that is to swing back somehow. And the reason Primordial Drake and Meteors are so powerful is because you can't really play around them. Like, your success rate at playing around them is even worse than Flame Strikes. Like, it's just so incredibly difficult. And they're designed that way. They're designed to swing the game if you get the card. So the only way to get back from it is to swing the game equally as hard, but without the really good cards. Or with fewer really good cards. Because in most of your deck, you're not going to get too many of the really good cards compared to other people. Like, by definition. That's how a competitive game works. And so what does that mean? How do you accomplish that? Well, the only way to accomplish swings is with synergy, if you don't have the card quality. So now, when it comes to drafting and dealing with the arena, and when it comes to just generally like playing the arena, you're going for your synergies much more. And this is one of the card good bad later today is going to be Lightforge Stegadon. That's like a huge synergy card, and it's really good right now if you can hit your synergies. Any kind of card that gets better, the more similar cards go with it, the better, right? And that's where the game is right now. And what do we know about synergies? It encourages risky drafting, right? Because you have to draft towards your synergies. And what do we know about risky drafting? It potentially creates even worse decks, right? Like, for all the ones that do work out and you get those decent synergy decks that can compete on the same level as the Primordial Drake and Meteor decks, you get the other decks where you don't hit your synergy and you're just like, And those decks, for good players, are even harder to carry to respectability, right? Because they're actually broken. Like, you've actually taken a normal curve-out deck and you broke it, chasing after synergies. So this creates an even bigger spiraling dilemma for anyone who considers themselves a good player, where they have to keep pushing because that's how Blizzard has stacked the odds. And they have to repeatedly push themselves into a way that reduces their consistency and creates these good and bad decks.
You know what's really interesting? I had a conversation with Shady Bunny recently, and the card that really encapsulates what you just said is Servant of Yogg-Saron. Like, we were talking about Servant of Yogg-Saron, and remember when it first came out, we rated it extremely low, right? Like, really, really low. And Shady was with us. He was totally with us. He's like, yeah, like, you guys rated that correctly. There's no way, like, there's just no way that you as a 7-win plus player can draft this card. And now, we were talking about it. He's like, I draft a card. He's like, I draft a card. He's like, I play it. He's like, I don't love it, but he's like, I can't give up. Because the math has always been there, right? The math has always been, on average, it is good for you. But, you know, you have that, you know, like I forgot what the number was. So I'm not even going to throw it out there. But that percent of time when it absolutely just wrecks you, right? I was watching Ratsmith's stream, and his opponent played a Servant of Yogg-Saron and a Blast Crystal Potion itself. So he anti-mana'd himself for 5 mana. But now, you know, I was talking with Shady, and he's like, yeah, I think it's like an average card, maybe slightly above average, and I draft it because I have to. Like, this is the only way. It's like, I don't have the luxury of, you know, incrementally, gaining advantage in small increments because there's so much swings, right? Like, I have to also, like, it's an arms race now. I need the Servant of Yogg-Saron in order to win now.
That's that's about as good of a summary as you're going to get. Good players are playing Yogg-Saron now, Servant of Yogg-Saron now. That's bad. Like, Blizzard, when it comes to direction of the arena, this is not a direction you want. You don't want your good players playing a card that literally says RNG determines everything. Not like a scope of stuff, but like everything.
Yeah, and look, obviously there is some, like, if you know the percentages, you know, like, do I attack first with my minions? Do I not? Is this a board that I want to Servant of Yogg-Saron, or can I wait a little bit? Right. It takes into consideration, but let's be honest.
That's going to change how good the card is by like less than 5%.
Right. It's not like a mad bomber in which you know, your decisions impact it a lot, right? Like attacking first, playing first the board and everything. This is just because you have no idea what's going to happen.
A mad bomber, your decisions will impact the result like 25% of the time.
Right.
Like with Yogg-Saron, it impacts it less than 5%. And the effect is bigger on top of that.
Oh, yeah, the effect is huge, right? So even relative, because you're just talking about affecting, but the actual size of the effect, Yogg-Saron, is huge. So
it's like, it's incomparable. That's why Mad Bomber's always been high on our tier list, and Yogg-Saron's always been pretty bad. Okay, so this is the direction that Blizzard has gone in with the arena, and you see the effects of it kind of cascading down on how you have to draft decks and how you have to play decks. And it's just bad. I don't have another word for it. Like, you're actually like taking something where if you didn't touch it, it would require X amount of skill, and then you touched it to make it require significantly less amount of skill. So, like, I'm not saying, like, to Blizzard, don't touch the arena, but, like, touch it in a better way, right? Like, there's good ways and bad ways to touch this thing, and while touching things makes it, like, you know, makes people excited and potentially gives you more people playing the arena, and we do like that, you can't take the fact that you are doing things and people are responding generally positively because the alternative was you doing nothing and thinking we're going in a good direction. People are just excited that you're moving. That's the baseline of excitement. It's like when the standard change came out with like golden cards and like the reviews were like super unanimous. It wasn't really super unanimous. It was like 25-33% people were just excited to have golden cards in the arena, and then like a little more split after that. But generally, you're just excited Blizzard's doing anything. I think we're moving, or we should be moving, a little past the stage of, hey, Blizzard, take your first shot at where you want the game to go, into, hey, Blizzard, please make it go somewhere good. Like, I think we're 6 months into, almost 6 months into this beginning of the era of Blizzard doing like all these changes in the arena, like in earnest. And really trying to take control of the direction of the arena, the way 7.1 has like totally done. And I think it's past time, or like it's about time. It's not really past time. It's about time that a push starts being made to actually get Blizzard to move this thing in a good direction, which it's not right now. Like, I want to emphasize this again, in case it gets lost and we're just talking about technical things about like how the arena has changed. It's a bad direction. Like, there are small good parts in it, but even within this idea that you need to play more spells, or that we want less like common neutral cards, you have to observe the effects of what it's doing. And when these things are combined, it makes it bad. Now, this could be solved by adding new rules to like change the full like overall effect of these rules, or taking some of these rules away, or maybe the next expansion will magically fix it. It's complicated, right? I'm not saying this is like the easiest fix, but when you decide what you're putting into this like soup, you kind of know what you're getting out. We predicted every step of this back before we even touched 7.1. Back when 7.1 was just announced, we were like, this is what's going to happen. This is why we don't like it. But we like that Blizzard's doing something, and I guess we'll see. And then every single piece of our predictions came true, because again, Arena's not terribly complicated. You can pretty much tell what's going to happen once you know what you're putting in. So there's a lot of ways to fix this. And they're pretty easy, because Blizzard already has the tools for all of it. Blizzard just has to actually do it. And going back to our earlier point, Blizzard has to communicate that to us, what exactly they're doing in a correct way. So I mean, right now, Blizzard's obviously doing this intentionally, so there's nothing really much to say about that, besides that, you know, it's bad. I don't know. Let's go on to, like, how we can actually fix it, right? Let's propose some ideas to Blizzard. How would you start to fix the arena?
Sure. Look,
Or the direction of the arena, rather. Not like arena as it is.
Right. All right. The number one thing, and I think this is sort of the most obvious thing, period, is just stop the power creep, man, which I think they will do next expansion, right? This is going back to the last Lightforge that we talked about. Our prediction for the upcoming expansion is that they are going to stop the power creep, because you just can't keep on going down this road. Right now, when I look at Ungoro cards and I look at cards from other expansions, I'm just like, wow, Ungoro cards are really freaking good, right? They definitely
you do this thing. You go on our tier list. We have a button that highlights all the Ungoro cards, you know, with a little nice vine that our artist in residence, Altar Slayer, did for us, and it's just all on the top, right? Or all on the left if you sort it by value, all on the top if you sort it by mana, which is where the good cards are. Like 50% of the cards up there or to the left are from Ungoro. There's one set that's 100 of the like 1,000 cards in the arena.
Yeah, they introduced a lot of good, not only class cards, but neutral cards, right? And neutral cards that are just good by themselves or have a very good effect, right? Very good effect, you know, for the stats that they give or just based on the meta. I think a good example is like Device Cleaner, right? Pretty decent stats. They're only giving up one stat, and silencing death rattles. There are a lot of death rattles going around. Once again, because of the power level of Ungoro. Anyways, we predict that in the next expansion, they will tone down the power level. We won't see a vanilla 4/7 minion for 5 mana that has upside, right? That can gain taunt.
Right.
That I think that is like the best example of the power creep. Like you created a 4/7 with no downside and only upside. That's a little bit ridiculous. It also has a beast tag, so that it's very relevant for stuff like Zubats and Menagerie Magicians. Yeah, so that would be the easiest first step, and I think Blizzard's already going down that path, so that would be step number 1.
Okay, I'm going to go with step number 2. So one thing Blizzard does not do, and I feel like they have no real interest in doing, is creating cards based on the arena. They don't really consider the arena when they're making these cards. They consider constructed and their whole constructed scene. And afterwards, they decide whether to put it in rarities based on arena, or to penalize it some other way, or to just take it out of the arena, right? That's like when the arena layer comes out. So a lot of the adjustments for the arena is based on offering rates. And I think the current way that they're doing offering rates can be tweaked a bit. I mean, it can be tweaked a lot, but it should be at the very least be tweaked a bit, because there is one rule in here that still makes so little sense and is apparently so unimportant to this whole direction of Blizzard that I don't even know if it's intentional anymore, even though I knew back in 7.1 it was intentional. And that's the 50% reduction of neutral classic cards. Neutral classic cards don't do stuff generally. Like 10% of them are like your Cult Masters and MCTs, and like 90% of them are like your Yetis and your Bloodprint Raptors. Yes, this is also where you get Magma Rager and the really bad cards, but Blizzard has this wonderful tool right now of being able to take cards completely out of the arena, or reduce them by 50% like with Vicious Fledgling, or reduce them by any percentage of, right? Like it doesn't have to be 50% across the board. And I think they did 50% across the board because they were just kind of like, let's break the arena right now and create a new meta, right? Completely new meta. We don't want to see Eddies anymore. We don't want to see Raptors. We want to see all Ungoro cards. So now that we're past that stage, I think it's about to, and we're about to add new cards into the pool, which dilutes the pool. So your Yetis and Raptors are going to get even lower. Is I think Blizzard really needs to restore the classic bonus and then take what they feel are the problematic cards, like definitely MCT, right? Like maybe Cult Master, even if they think that like has a design restriction on how the arena's played or whatever, even though it's not like aggro really needs to be nerfed anymore in the arena. But they can take those and nerf them by 50%. They could say, hey, it's not fun to play against Cult Master. Why should an aggro deck all of a sudden have card advantage over you? People think that's not fun. We're going to get, make that 50% just like Fledgling, right? Fledgling is not actually a terribly overpowered card, as we've established repeatedly. But it is frustrating to play against, and it is bad card design. They can go back and say, look, we think Cult Master is bad card design for this meta. We'll make it 50%. MCT is almost certainly bad card design for the arena. Let's make that 50%, right? Like, that's all things that they have done with much less offensive cards, and they can do it. They don't have to punish the Yeti and the Raptor because of these individual cards. And when you take when you take the Yeti and the Raptor and put it back into the arena, this magical thing is going to happen. All of a sudden, skill is going to be a little more relevant again. All of a sudden, your backbone of your arena that the whole game is freaking based on is going to like start existing a little more on. All of a sudden, you don't need as much ridiculous combos to get an okay win for a particular deck, even if it's bad. It's not like the curve-out decks that don't do anything special are going to get 12 wins. It's not going to happen. But you've at least created a floor that you can operate and be like some stability into the arena, right?
Right. So ADWCTA, let me stop you for 1 second and ask, how does introducing Yeti and Bloodfin Raptor increase skill? Which I think is a question that, or like you made a statement that I think a lot of people would just be like, huh?
Okay.
So
that's a good question. So
thank you.
Minions that do nothing require more skill than minions that do things, which requires more skill than anything with initiative. When you have initiative, you can react to things. So I don't have to predict that my opponent is going to do X. My opponent does X, whatever X is, and then I react to it. So my opponent at any time can do anything, and all my decision has to be is, can I punish that? If yes, I win. If no, I lose. That's it. That's what initiative does. It is a lot simpler than to play a minion. For example, if I'm playing a Yeti, I have to say, okay, is my opponent likely to play something that my Yeti can punish? Now I have to anticipate what my opponent's doing. I have to know the possibilities of what my opponent's to do. And you may be like, well, then you're just like kind of like, you know, throwing darts at a wall randomly trying to guess what your opponent's doing. But you're not. Because when you're trying to play a minion, you're usually not playing on an empty board, like a completely empty board. You're usually playing with some other things happening. Like if your opponent has another minion and you're playing against a paladin, you may think, oh, if I play the Yeti, what if he buffs that? Or maybe he wants to buff that, but then he only has 2 more mana, and I know he has to play a small thing that my Yeti can hit, and I already have a taunter that's going to taunt his big things. Like you can get really, really creative, and you can box your opponents in to these unfavorable plays with skill. You can't do that with spells. Some spells you can bait your opponents into, but that's really just like, I'm going to wait until you play your like powerful card that you're going to play eventually anyway. That's not really skill, that's just knowing what baiting is. Like, it doesn't change. It's always the same baiting. It's not situational. The skill is knowing that you can bait your opponents. Once you know that, you're set, right? Like, skill beyond that only affects like marginally, like, oh, how long do I hold on to it until I realize my opponent doesn't really have that card? Or like has figured me out and I will play, you know, elsewhere. That is not the same level and nuance of skill as a minion, especially a textless minion.
Yeah. No, it's very true. And thank you for the explanation.
Yeah, thank you for making me give that explanation, because I now realize that's really not obvious to probably most of our listeners who haven't been with us for like, you know, more than a year. And that's why Trump, one of the best arena players, like with the launch of the game, was very adamant about it. Yeti's the best card, like one of the top cards in the game. It looks totally unassuming, but Trump knew that because he was so much better of a player than his opponents, all he needed was the Yeti, and he could do way more with the Yeti than anyone else could. And that's the basis of skill in the arena. And once you take that away, what does skill become? Actually good cards, right? Like not Yetis that you make good, but like meteors that are just good no matter who plays them.
It becomes the Merps kind of skill where you top deck your answer and you top deck your lethal. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my like very simple, very small change to the arena offering rates that I think will have a huge impact. And it was so unimportant to Blizzard. Like you kind of tell that Blizzard kind of gave up on this idea or doesn't even realize they're doing it anymore. Like they have a thumb on the scale and they kind of left it there and now it's like glued there and they just don't realize that the scale is even there and the thumb is there and they're just like, oh, I'm gonna do other stuff. Because it wasn't even in the rules. Like when they published the rules of the offering rates in the arena, this was not there. Like Ixar had to come in afterwards and be like, oh yeah, by the way guys, that wasn't actually a change. Like some people thought that was a change and they had gotten rid of that rule and they were like, hey, but no, he was like, the rule's still there, we just forgot about it. Like if you can forget about a rule like that, it probably shouldn't be there. Like same with Faceless Summoner. I don't even think Faceless Summoner being back in the arena right now would be a horrible thing.
I don't think so either. And if you look at Face the Summoner, or if you look at Ungoro cards and then look at Face the Summoner,
Yeah, right.
Oh, this is totally fine.
Normal, right?
Come on.
Totally normal.
Well, no. To be fair to Blizzard, they didn't remove it because it was open. It was part of a class rebalance, right? So they had to remove some good cards. But yeah,
we don't have that anymore, right? That's what micro adjustments are for. You never have to completely remove a card because it's OP or underpowered.
Right. You never. So, and this is also something that Blizzard has talked about. They said that perhaps reintroducing cards.
Yeah. Please, I want Purify.
Snipe.
Oh God, I can't believe Snipe is still. Don't remind me that Snipe is still not in the game. That was one of the worst decisions Blizzard has ever made. Not in terms of its impact on the arena, but in terms of like how stupid it was, like from a design perspective.
I played around Snipe the other day, and because this is to highlight sort of the stupidity of the decision. Because what ended up happening was I was a hunter, right? And a rogue hallucinated a Grime Street informant and then selected a hunter secret, and then I was playing around everything, but then I was
how
like,
do you know that? Oh, because he played the secret, right?
Because he's a rogue playing a hunter secret.
Got it.
It's like, how do you know that it was from? I was like, wait, let's please keep the credibility here. But and then at the last second, I was like, no, wait, I can't do this move because it gets hard, like super hard punished. By oh yeah, it was a Cult Master play.
Oh
right? Yeah. I was like, no, wait, I actually can't do this, and it turned out to be Snipe. But it just goes to show, like, you have to remember this stuff. Also goes to show how ridiculous the game is when rogues take a card that discovers one of my cards.
And it also goes to show how Snipe is not actually that bad of a card if it's forcing you to totally change your turn and will eventually deal 4 damage to the next minion you play, even.
Right.
Like, it was never that bad of a card. It was a high skill card, actually, both to play and to play around. Well, not that high to play around, but somewhat, right? Because it sometimes just actually makes you change your whole turn. You have to come up with a new plan, and they just got rid of it because people had low win rates with it.
Right, exactly. And it's like they removed it from the arena, but they didn't actually remove it. They removed it from the draft, which makes it even worse, I think, because it's still there in the point. Like, you still encounter it 0.0001% of the time.
This is like the small stuff that, like, you shouldn't have to think about.
You shouldn't. You really shouldn't. But yeah. Anyways.
Okay, so that's my very small suggestion, and Merps's more bigger card design, prediction / suggestion. And yeah, I mean, look, this is Blizzard's game, right? They'll take it whatever direction they want to. I just hope that all the positive press, because this is a better arena than it used to be, in the sense that more people are playing it and there's like more, well, kind of more diversity. Questionable. I still think MSG was the best meta ever in terms of diversity, but they're obviously trying to do things. And I just hope that they know that some of the things that they're doing is very, very much fundamentally screwing with the arena in ways that are not positive. Like, if they make 5 decisions and 3 of them are good and 2 of them are bad, that doesn't mean they made a good change. That means they made 3 good changes and 2 bad ones. Like, don't mistake the fact that overall it's good for the idea that everything is good and we shouldn't change the pieces or re-examine the pieces. And these are very, like, I think obvious and predictable things that have been causing bad things.
I totally agree. And, you know, here's the way I view kind of, you know, how we analyze, right? I think at the end of the day, like, man, we criticize a lot, and I do try to temper it and sort of preface things and temper what I say as well. But I think what's most important here is, like, we are picking at the problematic areas because we want to see improvement, right? So, you know, week after week, when we, you know, sort of dish out the criticism, when we talk about this thing can be better, that thing can be better, obviously, you know, we're not sitting here talking about this thing is great, nothing needs to be changed here, this is really fun. And there are those things as well, right? There are obviously those things. We still like playing the game. We love the fact that they are changing things. So we're going to keep on picking on the things that can be improved, that should be improved, that Blizzard can do better, that
also,
we want to see out of the expansion.
There's very big changes in the arena. They're like, they affect how every game of arena is played. You can't overstate the importance of these kinds of like overall changes, even though, you know, it affects the direction and Blizzard's going with it. Like, this is not, it's not like we sit around and we cry wolf all the time. We do it very rarely. I feel like very rarely do we say something and then we say, oh, this is going to be a big deal. And then it turns out not to be a big deal. Like, most of the time we say it's a big deal, it still remains a pretty big deal for, like, even if they never fix it, it's still a big deal. Like, when everyone was complaining about how bad Warriors were, we were like, oh, it gets bad, but it's, you know, not, like, too terrible, right? And then it got, and then the weapons change happened, and, like, the weapons change, the spell change happened without weapons. And we're like, seriously, Blizzard? Like, why would you ever do, like, these people not actually thinking about this? Because it's not like high level thinking, right? When it becomes fairly medium level thinking, I expect Blizzard to be able to do it. And when they don't, I just think it's carelessness, or it's like, just, yeah, I mean, care less or care, what do you call it? Anti-care.
Apathy?
Yeah, there we go. Apathy. Anti-care. Yes.
Anti-care. Wow.
But yeah, and so, because clearly they're trying to do stuff with the arena. So now I'm on this thing where, like, all right, Blizzard, you've shown us that you want to do stuff in the arena. Now actually do good stuff, please. Like, I tutor for, you know, I tutored to get my way through, like, college and before grad school happened, and, like, high school and college.
How did the students do?
Oh, they did amazing. I had, like, a test score improvements in, like, the top, like, 5 percentile for my company. But it's really sad to see, like, a student try really hard, but then, like, do all the wrong things because they're not, like, listening. And it's not like I'm in the same position, right? Like, we're trying to tell Blizzard what to do because we think we know how to do this better than they know. Like, honestly, that's why we're trying to tell them what to do. It is because we think we know their game better than they do. And it is because we do better than they probably do. You know, I don't think they have, like, people who get as high records as us or any of the other top arena players. And that's fine. Game designers are usually not the absolute best players in that range.
No, and
that's fine. It's not a requirement.
Yeah, no.
But they should listen to these players, especially people who are, like, purposefully doing the analysis stuff. It's not a mechanical game, right? Like, we're not, like, gifted mechanically and we don't know really about some of the other stuff. All we know is the other stuff. We're horrible mechanically. I can't even add, right? Like, I mess up every little minor mechanical thing Blizzard tries to make you do.
I spend my entire turn adding things, and then I still doubt myself.
Right? Like, we suck. Like, compared to most players, we kind of suck at those little things. So all we're good at is the big things. And so that's why we're coming. Like, we're not the test designers, right? We're not, like, the people who make the SATs. We're the people who are trying to teach you how to succeed on the SATs. That's how I feel like my role is. And that includes to the people who are making the SATs and how to make it a better freaking test so you're actually testing the intelligence of your students rather than what the test really freaking does, which is test your weird ability to learn the test and then, like, do the test, right? Like, it's the same problem. It's the same exact problem from my perspective. And the difference is, when I was a lowly, you know, SAT teacher back in the day, the board of SAT creator people is not paying me any attention, but I feel like Blizzard may be paying a bit more attention to us and to you guys and to the other content creators, and they have been, you know, with some of the other stuff, and they've definitely communicated, you know, with us or whatever. We met them at BlizzCon, and, you know, I know some of them listen to the Lightforge.
Hey, wait. When you tweeted out that it was the 100 episode of the Lightforge, Yongwoo liked your tweet.
Oh, see?
Yeah.
Someone at Blizzard knows we exist, right? Like, and these ideas, especially if you guys, like, carry them out into, like, Twitter or, like, Reddit or wherever, or, like, bring them up and ask how Hafu or Crip, I don't know if Crip actually can read his chat, but, like, ask how other people feel about, like, these ideas or changes that they want to do with the arena, and, you know, Blizzard will listen to something. And I think if everybody's sort of on the same page with a change, like, they'll eventually come around to it. And so we're beating the drums on some of these changes, right? Like, there's a reason Arena Warriors Matters version 2 never came out, because Blizzard fixed it before it got that bad. Like, I was literally like 2 months away from making Arena Warriors Matters 2 on the anniversary of Arena Warrior Matters 1. If they did another bad thing with the Wizard, if they didn't change the weapons bonus. But they did. And that was also one of the first changes that we said Blizzard needed to make with 7.1, right? Like 7.1 came out and we're like, this is so stupid that weapons aren't included in the spell change. This is like the most stupid thing of all the ones. And they fixed it. So maybe they'll fix the next most stupid thing that they did. Right? Especially when some of the considerations for the stupid thing they did is no longer a concern, and they have tools to mitigate it in other ways that don't take too much of their time even, right? Like 50% offering rate to MCT and Cult Master is not a hard thing to do.
No.
So I think they can do it, and I'm hoping they will, and you guys can definitely help. I'm not making another YouTube video and rallying the troops that way. At least not at this point. 7.1 did come out like 4 months ago. Like maybe if it's still like this in like 4 months, I'll try to, do something more publicly. But I think Blizzard, can really make this a much better game by changing the direction they're going, and realizing what direction they're going. I don't even know if they exactly know what direction this is going skill wise. But anyway, that was a lot of talk, and I feel like this is the right time to do it, right? Because next week we're not going to talk about anything but KFC. Sorry, KFT. Maybe KFC too. We'll see what I have for lunch.
Changing the topic of this. You did not consult me about this.
Got Coop, man. We're the Arena Coop. This is the if you guys don't know, this is the 3rd anniversary of the Arena Coop that we're gonna play after this. So we've been around for 3 years with the Arena Coop, and maybe it's time to celebrate with some chicken.
Yeah, we are fully diving into the Coop aspect of this. It is now a KFC. Hashtag not sponsored.
Hashtag definitely not sponsored.
Exactly.
You know what KFC has?
Chicken?
Coke Zero.
I thought they were owned by Pepsi.
Oh, really? Do they not have Coke Zero? Oh, screw KFC.
No,
Popeyes.
they're owned by
Popeyes
Pepsi.
all the way.
I'm pretty sure they're owned by Pepsi. I think like KFC and Pizza Hut are both owned.
That's why I never go to either of those. That makes so much sense now. I'm wondering why I never go to these places, even though I don't really, mind their food.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, question from the GOAT.
Question from the GOAT. So we're deviating a little bit. We're taking questions from you guys. This is a question that people have just been asking generally.
Okay, hold on. Before I get to the question, Midnight Bomber from Twitch chat just said deep fried meta meets deep fried chicken. And I had to bring that in because I can't believe we missed the pun. Go on.
It is pretty good.
Go on.
This means we've actually been planning this for the longest time.
We actually have. This is the whole thing's about chicken. Little do you know, 2 years from now, we'll release a chain chicken restaurant. You guys think we're going to go pro and be like, Hearthstone players or some kind of other gaming related thing? We're actually going to open a franchise chicken restaurant.
There you go. All right. So a lot of people have been asking sort of, ADWCTA Merps, you guys have been talking about your own sort of drafting site or algorithm. How is that coming along? Where are you guys? So that's going to be the question from the GOAT for this week.
All right. So that gets asked like, I don't know, a few times a week by people to me. And I just want to give you guys an update, which I've done on stream like randomly a couple times. But we've been working like really in earnest about it since the beginning of the year, and you guys know that the Lightforge tier list has the whole entire back end that is what this algorithm is doing, and we've been focused on improving that because like a normal card adjuster, what it'll do is it'll take a card that has a card tier list value or whatever, right? And then it'll increase it when it thinks this card will do better here, and it'll decrease it when it thinks this card will do worse here, right? That's pretty straightforward. What we're actually doing is we're not even making cards. We're not even rating the cards necessarily. We'll adjust it, like with a adjust at the end if we need to, for certain special things we can't take care of. But we're actually we actually have broken down each card to its very individual pieces, from how much each attack to each health is worth, from how taunt actually functions on it. We split up values into its own buckets, like whether it's tempo or card advantage or curve or reach or damage to face, which is different than reach, yes, it is different than reach, or the survivability when heals and armors are different, and how taunt affects that while also affecting tempo. And we've combined that with how the game is actually played, meaning we're looking at all the board states on each individual turn, as well as how many turns get played in each game, depending on what deck you're running, on average for your deck. And we're basically matching the situational effectiveness of each card with what is actually seen in the game when it comes to stat distributions and when it comes to like numbers of minions on the boards, along with obviously what what everyone's already doing, which is what the synergies are and like how many removals your opponent has, how many beasts you have, and how those affect the values. So it's going to archetype incredibly well once we're done with it, because it's actually, like, I like to call it the objective method, where we're taking subjectivity out, except at the very root level, like with our expectations, and then it'll just kind of run itself. So that's where we're going with this. We're in the transition stage where we're making this, like, you'll see this when KFT comes out. We're gonna release the next model, which is actually the third major model of the Lightforge tier list, and it'll be a little like somewhat different than the current one, but more importantly than that, within the month or two after that, it'll keep slightly changing somewhat every couple of weeks as we like finalize and add in all the different layers of the synergies and the expectations in that. It's not going to change by too much because we have all the normal stuff that you were probably thinking of in there, but we're going to start adding in the stuff that you're not even thinking about. So that's the change you'll notice. But what's actually happening is the back end is getting to the point where we can just move numbers up and down and it'll adjust your deck. And that's the easy part. Like, it feels weird to say this, but like the tier list is actually the hard part, the way we're doing it. Normally the tier list is the easy part. You just come up with how good the card is. But we actually needed to find out, like, how does forbidden shaping actually work? What does it match up with on each turn? And we have to figure out a way to do this not by hand, so that we can just put any card in. And it's measuring everything by turn, as well as taking into account the arena format. So if, let's say, Blizzard released Sealed tomorrow, the system is ready to take on Sealed in like a month at most, in a very accurate way. And it can right now be tuned for Constructed, but at that point you actually have to use so much like processing power. Like, we're not going to release it for Constructed because it'll like crash our servers. But it can be used for Constructed to tell you what the best card is in terms of pure value to your win conditions. So yeah, it's going to, we're still in the process of that, but you'll see like a huge milestone progress, even though it just looks like a tier list update. And it'll change every single card. So get ready for a new tier list when KFT comes out. That'll still very much look like the current tier list in terms of relative numbers, but you may see like minion to spell differences get lower or higher, and the curve moving as we adjust to the new cards that are coming into the meta, as we get a little more sophisticated in our calculations of how delay and situationalness works within each of the cards.
Yep. Cool. Thanks for the update.
Yep. And if you guys are wondering why I'm not streaming as much in July, it's because we're getting into crunch time on this. We really want to get this out for KFT.
July is quite a busy
month. So Merps is doing most of the streaming. He's doing leaderboard stuff. I've just been, poking my head in here or there when I can. Yeah. Okay. The question from the GOAT is brought to you by our patrons. Patreon.com/grinninggoat. That is how we fund stuff, including all of this back-end thing that I've been talking about. And, really a huge shout out to everyone who's been contributing. I know we don't otherwise get a lot of money from our YouTube or our tier list website. So it is it's definitely it's not just me. It's not like I'm sitting there working on this. There is two anonymous members of our programming / web development team that are anonymous for now, but maybe not for too long. And we are all trying to do our best to push this along. Okay. And in terms of, if people are wondering about like the release date, this is just an update. We will hopefully be able to like do stuff with it, and like actually like you'll hear us talk about it because we'll actually be using it hopefully in the fall. But you guys will not have access to it, even the like insiders. Like if you're like a mod sitting in our channel being like, hey, can I not until probably like the end of winter is when we're hoping for. Could slip to spring. Yeah. That's the expectation. Just because once you get it up, there's going to be a whole lot of like bugs and stuff. It's not going to be like immediately ready for the public.
Right. Okay. On to card good bad. Card good bad this week is Light Fused Stegodon. Part of the reason, basically, look, I'm going to be doing card good bad this week because ADWCTA hasn't been playing, and I've been playing a lot. Actually, a lot. Not just a lot relative to IOS,
but like a lot off stream.
Oh yeah. I play a ton. So this is sort of what ADWCTA has been talking about, though, in terms of synergies, right? You can't just win with good individual cards. You also want to win with synergy. Now, where Light Fused Stegodon really kind of shines in this meta is the fact that it synergizes with cards that are good by themselves, namely Lost in the Jungle and Vine Cleaver, right? Yeah. Or it's just okay as well if you just got a couple 1/1s on the board, which Paladin does. And we're in a meta in which it is hard to remove everything, right? And if you get on the board early, sure, you can, remove everything. But once a Vine Cleaver comes out as well, are you actually going to be able to remove all the 1/1s on the board? Probably not. So Light Fused Stegodon is a card in which it synergizes, but it's not a typical synergy in which, both of the parts need to come together for either one of them to be good. You don't need Stegodon at all for Vine Cleaver to be super OP, right? It's just amazing.
It's going to be the pick no matter what, basically, right? It's a Vine Cleaver.
Yeah, exactly. And same thing sort of with the Steward of Darkshire as well, right? That is also a card which I've seen. And unfortunately, during my leaderboard runs, I have seen Light Fused Stegodon along with Steward of Darkshire.
I hate that combination.
That is just a pure auto lose. It went from, there was a turn in which Vine had a Vine Cleaver. It created 2 1/1s. He had a 1/1 as well. And next turn, he put down the Steward of Darkshire, swung first, and then put out the Light Fused Stegodon, and it was just over. Like half of his 1/1s had Divine Shield and +3 attack, and the other just had +3 attack. I was like, oh, okay, this is really, really over. So look, Stegodon is just one of those cards that kind of fits with the meta. It is quite good, but once again, it is still one of those cards that you want to be still a little bit careful drafting, because while Vine Cleaver is great, Lost in the Jungle is great, Light Fused Stegodon itself, if you can't get it to hit on more than a single 1/1, or if it hits on a single 1/1 and you don't get the adaptation that you want / need, it's still a little bit problematic, right? And as Paladin, you're still trying to get on the board, stay on the board, even though you're playing a little bit differently now. It's not all about the Blessed Kings. It's not about Seal of Champions. Remember that card, right?
Oh, God.
It's not about those anymore. Your buffs are more delayed. It's Spike Ridge Steed, Dino Size, but you still want to stay on the board so you can initiate the trades, you can get the face damage. Paladin has become actually a very good face class, especially against mages. And I think it's Shady Bunny that calls Vine Cleaver the Mage Killer. He just calls it the Mage Killer. That's his name for it, which is true. Mages have no answer for Vine Cleaver. And you could be winning against the Paladin, even on the board, and you're up on cards. And usually that's a great spot to be in, but then Paladin plays Vine Cleaver, goes face once, and you're just like, oh, I can't. I don't know what to
need
do.
A taunt, and even after that, I have to hope the Paladin doesn't have a buff.
Exactly, because now they have 2 annoying 1/1s, and then they probably have a way to, remove what you put out, and then they go face again, create more guys. So you're like, well, do I AOE? But then I can't do as much stuff, and then they have 4 more and it's over. They've Pyroblasted you, they put you in a tough spot. And they've created all of these minions. So Paladins, man, I guess bottom line is Paladin is really good, which I'm guessing is something you've never heard before. So I'm happy to be bringing this amazingly, revolutionary news to you guys. You're welcome.
Yep. But remember, this has to sync up with actual cards. This is not a good card if you're just going to hero power with it. So that's why it has an average rating. But if you have those cards, or if you just really want to draft that type of deck. And remember, Vine Cleaver has that bonus now from the weapon and the bonus from the Ungorl still for 1.5. So like for 1.5 times. So it's actually, you're going to get more Vine Cleavers than you actually want usually. Like, you actually do sometimes not pick Vine Cleavers because it's like your fourth offered, and you're like, so Lightfuse Stegodons are not a terribly risky proposition to pick early on in the draft, but they're definitely high value if you have the setup for it.
Yep.
Okay, so Paladins class talk. This is the ending of this Lightforge and the beginning of our 3rd anniversary of the Arena Coupe, which we are doing Paladin. And we are luckily doing Paladin because it is the best class in the meta right now. It has somehow escaped the micro adjustment hammer that Blizzard put out.
I mean, they could have been micro adjusted by actually like 2%.
Oh, right. I mean, it's avoided the hammer. It may not have avoided the love tap.
Right.
The 1%, you know, across the board decreasing their good cards or whatever. But they have avoided the Mage and Rogue treatment, in which especially Mage has the number of their key cards reduced by like 10%, and Rogue does for a few as well. And we still don't know exactly which, because I haven't had the time to go in and pull all of them. And no one else seems to have done it on that specific of a level. So if anyone wants to, like, Taro first brought this to everybody's attention on Arena HS, but there's been no follow-up yet. So tireless workers of the Arena community, if someone wants to do this, it would be greatly appreciated. And then again, who knows, right? Who knows if it's even worth it to do it, because it may just change in a week or two. Because they're micro adjustments. They're just not very micro. Anyway, so that's why Paladin's at the top right now, right? They have the weapon bonus to Vine Cleaver. Vine Cleaver synergizes with a lot of stuff. Vine Cleaver does really well against the Mage. And also pretty well against the Rogue, too. Because Rogue usually gets themselves kind of low, just like, you know, by doing Rogue stuff in the beginning. And they have adjustments to that cards. They still have access to their normal good Ungoro cards, and the spell bonus is still applying to things like Consecration, like Spike-Rich Steed. And there's not enough early game right now to punish the Paladins. That's really the problem. Like, it
really is. Yeah.
Like, you need to make the Paladin not get to any turn in which they can buff, but then you're always behind. Like, it's just, like, try playing a Warrior against the Paladin. You get to turn 8, and you're like, I've lost, because I need to keep clearing the 1/1s, or else he's going to buff with a Stegodon, and I've lost anyway.
Right. So one of the problems with the Paladin is they don't have multiple counters. They have a soft, I'll call Rogue a soft counter, right? But the Rogue still needs those cards. It's not like the Rogue overall as a class has like a lot of, like the class just counters them, right? Like Hunters are just a counter to Warlocks. It doesn't really matter what cards the Hunter has. It's just, you can have a Hunter deck and you beat Warlocks, right? A good percent of times. Mm-hmm. The problem with Paladins is that, like, aggressive decks should be good versus them, right? Like, control decks get faced by Paladins, right? Because Paladins are sort of a delayed aggressive deck. They don't hit you in the face very early on, but at the end of the game, they just put so much pressure and they have so much power cards, you can't play around that. And then suddenly Dino Size to the face, or like we stated, Vine Cleavers start going face, and you can't do anything about that. So control decks have a very hard time sort of holding off the late game aggression Paladins, but aggro decks, I've been playing Hunter a lot, right? Mm-hmm. Man, you can't punish Paladins even for being greedy. You need a specific kinds of Hunter decks, ones in which, you know, even with the deadly shots, even with this and that, you're always afraid of turn 6. And going into turn 6, you know they've been playing slow, but you're just like, wow, if I bump my minions into the Paladin, I am giving up this damage. But if I go face and leave them at like 8 health and they steed, I can't just hero power them down for 4 turns. They'll actually kill me before that. Or if they just have 1 heal after that, it's over. Yeah. It's really tough. And that's one of the problems. Because even, I would say, even in the Karazhan meta, when everyone was complaining about multiple Firelands Portal mages, I played Hunter and I beat them so often, right? Because Firelands Portal doesn't do anything if you're aggressive, unless you're a god and you roll Earth Elementals all the time. But it feels as though Paladins right now, I'm not saying they're like super duper OP, and they definitely can be beat. It's just they don't have this like very defined weakness. And Un'Goro helps them in that regard, even with neutral cards. A lot of times as a hunter, if I don't draw particularly well, or even if I draw well, like I get a 2/1 out and a 3/2 out, and they coin into the Tar Creeper, suddenly my advantage is gone. Right?
Yeah, it's too easy to flip the board in Un'Goro.
It's way too easy. And as a hunter, I know that like, you know, I can draw well, and by drawing well, it's because I've drafted the curve. So I quote deserve to draw well, right? Because I've drafted the curve, I should draw well. But a Paladin can just draft a lot of powerful cards, and they're helped out by things like Tar Creepers or Stonehill Defenders into whatever Paladin legendary card you want, right?
Yep.
So it's these things that are really, really tough when facing Paladin, and just it makes it very frustrating.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But luckily, we are the Paladin and not the Hunter, so
time to go the Arena Coup.
And even if you're just watching this on YouTube and you don't usually watch the Arena Coup, it's going to be a good one because it's going to be Paladin at the height of Paladin, and it is our 3-year Arena Coup anniversary. The first ever stream we ever did, if you guys don't know, was the Arena Coup, and we used to only stream the Arena Coup once every Sunday at the same time that we still stream Arena Coup today. And it's been 3 years. It's 140, so we definitely missed a few Arena Coups, but not that many. 143 years, that's a pretty impressive rate, I think.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, tune in for that. That'll be on YouTube, and if you're watching on Twitch, it'll be right after this. Until next week, or probably until like a couple hours from night when they start leaking it on Reddit, for the KFT cards. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps.
See
you guys
next week.